Today, welcome to another exciting and interesting session. And today's topic is really very interesting because it's on storytelling. Storytelling as a pedagogy. Before we move forward, may I request Smita to please recite the prayer?
वाराणस्यं हेमवर्णं मङ्गलाङ्गं मनोहरं गौरीपुत्रं धनश्रेष्ठं विघ्नराजं नमाम्यहम् विघ्नराजं नमाम्यहम्.
Before we begin today's session, let me introduce the speaker of the day, who is Mrs. Jayashri Shashibhushan Bhake. Jayashri ma'am, a very warm welcome to Vidyadan. And speaking about Jayashri ma'am, I really don't know where to begin with because she is an individual who's having 3 post-graduation degrees. One in English literature, then in education, and then in Bharatanatyam. She has won innumerable amount of awards, and some of the prominent among them were the Super Nachiketa Award at the hands of Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Shri Devendra Fadnavis. Also received the Nachiketa Award for Innovation in Education under the hands of Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So she was really very fortunate and to receive an award at the hands of such a big person. She is currently working as a director principal of GH Raisoni Vidyaniketan. And I'm not going to spend any more time in introducing her because I'm sure I don't need to do that. She will do it herself. And her session is going to keep all of us held, I'm sure. Over to you, Bhake ma'am.
A warm welcome to everybody aboard. And it's so good to see such an overwhelming response. Honestly speaking, what Indira ma'am said, she had been kind enough to use those beautiful words for me. But as if I am supposed to introduce myself, I am a learner. I've come here to interact with you all and to learn from you people. Because these 200 plus 300 people are all there educators, beautiful storytellers, and are going to give me lovely inputs for me as an educationist. So thank you so much, Vidyadan, and I appreciate the initiation of Vidyadan for reaching out to the educationalist community across India. So congratulations, Vidyadan, you have been doing a stupendous job. And I hope I am able to live up to the expectations of what you people have been putting across for me. Before I start, I would also like to thank Ms. Dipta, whose session had inspired me to dwell deep into this particular topic of storytelling. The moment we say story, what clicks into our mind? There's a beautiful smile which comes to our face, and it connects to our heart somewhere, to our childhood. And that's the reason story has a special place in our hearts. I hope everyone agrees to this. We can discuss about all these in the chat box so that we can have inputs from you people. So when we are talking about story, why not start with a story? So it's a story time. Are we all interested in hearing a story? I need to get that thumbs up. Like I said, we have to interact, friends. So send me those thumbs up so that I come to know that you are interested in listening to a story. When we are talking about a storytelling class, it has to be through a story. Thank you. Thank you. So let's start with a Jewish folktale. Once there was a man, his name was Fact. And this particular man, Fact, was avoided by people in his village. Nobody wanted to talk to him. Nobody even wanted to meet him or see him. You know why? Because Fact was all rugged. Rather, he was naked. Fact was a person who was outspoken. He was blunt. People did not like to talk to him. People did not want to accept what he stated. People felt him disgusting because he was naked, he was shabby, and everybody avoided him. Because of this, Mr. Facts was disheartened. So, what he did was he went to the village, a neighboring kingdom, and in the neighboring kingdom was ruled by King Fantasy. He said, "Let me try my luck there. I may be making some friends there." So he went to the kingdom of King Fantasy. But there too, he came across the same reaction. People said, "Who's this foreigner? He's so disgusting. Oh my God, look at him. He's stinking. He's so rude. He's so blunt. We don't want to hear him. Go away from our kingdom." But then he insisted that I want to meet King Fantasy. He tried to, overcome all the forces of the soldiers and reach the courtroom. There, the courtiers tried to stop him. But then he insisted that I want to meet the king. So one of the courtier, he went and informed about his arrival to King Fantasy. King Fantasy, when he came to know that Fact had come, he was delighted. He said, "I was waiting for Mr. Fact. Come, Mr. Fact. How are you? I would like to meet you." When Fact came to know about how the king was behaving, because this was the first time anybody talked so politely and so lovingly to him, he was overwhelmed. He said, "King Fantasy, I want to talk to you." The king said, "Yes, of course, let us talk. But then, before that, I need to do something for you. May I?" And the king clapped his hands, called for his courtiers, and then there were two who took Mr. Fact to the washroom. They took him, gave him a nice bath. Then the king again clapped his hands, called for the merchants, and these merchants bought beautiful silk robes for him. And again, he called for some jewelers who brought beautiful pearls and gems for Mr. Fact. And there was Mr. Fact in a new avatar altogether. And King Fantasy now said, "Yes, Mr. Fact, you may speak." And you'll not believe it, everybody was all ears to listen to Mr. Fact. Friends, I'm sure I have reached where I was aiming to. You all could understand what am I trying to talk here. Facts are the information. For example, what we get from the textbook. And fantasy is the narrative, the story. So the packaging of the facts in the fantasy wrapper makes it so exciting and overwhelming that everybody is ready to give an ear to it. So now we know that what is the importance of those narrations, of the importance of the facts being wrapped in or draped in the beautiful silk robe of fantasy. Storytelling. Storytelling is the original form of teaching and has the potential of fostering emotional intelligence and help the child gain insight into human behavior. Storytelling provides one tool to bridge the gap, create empathy in the classroom, and allow students to reach the universal understanding through a personal experience of other members of the learning community. Do you all agree to this? It is an important
Yes,
tool.
ma'am.
Thank you. And I'm so happy that CBSE has brought back this old tradition of storytelling. Friends, it was very much there in our culture, in our Indian culture, where Vedas and Upanishads were full of stories, stories of people, stories of things, stories of situation, stories of conquerors, stories of warriors. But there was a time when all this beautiful pedagogy was lost. And thanks to CBSE that it has tried to retrieve it back. It has not got the place it should have. And let us together give it the space which it deserves. The art of storytelling appeared in the form of oral language, and it dates back to the emergence of humanity. So we have heard about Panchatantra, the Aesop's fables, and all those. Language, free expression, communication, imagination, entertainment, etc., is cultivated through the stories. And the list is endless, dear friends. In this way, the usefulness of the narration changes over time and requires a different approach for different classes, for the different masses. Specifically, in the era of globalization, through the art of storytelling, the meeting of different cultures, and at the same time, the difference as a sign of respect and knowledge is established. Stories, stories, stories. Stories have been so powerful. Stories have been so memorable. Stories capture your attention. Stories give you an emotional connect. And story make you imaginative. Rather, I must say that it is a licensed daydreaming. The teacher has permitted the child to dream in the class. It's a licensed daydreaming. When I talk about emotional connect, we see films, we see plays. These are also forms of stories, aren't they? But then if I say, do you remember the story of Sholay? Yes. Do you remember the story of The Sound of Music? Yes, because these are stories. And so very effectively put that it captures your attention. We have often cried with the characters, we have laughed with the characters and enjoyed the situations, didn't we? So, as Dr. James Comer states, Dr. James Comer is the professor in the University of Yale, and he very nicely states that there's no significant learning which can occur without some significant relationship. Friends, herein, he's not talking only about the relationship of the student and the teacher. He's talking about the relationship of what we are teaching in the classroom with that of the real life. He's talking about the connection between the material world to that of the learning in the classroom. And of course, we all do agree when we talk about the experiential learning that no significant learning is occurring without some significant relation with the real life connects. And this is what is experiential learning. Multiple parts of the brain are lit up when we listen to a story. The left and the right brain together start functioning. We'll learn more about it later. So, benefits of storytelling. Storytelling, we all have been knowing, have loads and loads of benefits on the students. I am trying to jot down certain. It boosts the listening skills. Do you all agree? Does it boost the listening skill?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes,
if you
ma'am.
have, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your
Yes,
response.
ma'am.
If you have a beautiful narration coming up, or a speaker who is, kept you spellbounded, you are all ears for the person. And hence, it enhances the listening skill. Often, our students only hear. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is a physical attribute, while listening is an inner attribute. Listening reaches the brain. So, yes, we do connect to the brain. Does it enhance the speaking skills? Yes, it does enhance the speaking skills because herein, when if a child is asked to speak, he does not have any inhibition because there's no right or wrong answer. It's correct versus creative answers. and he has put his perspective as per his imagination. So, yes, he does not have any fear to speak, and hence the speaking skills improve. The child actually listens to the teacher with the proper voice modulation and intonation communicated. So, yes, the speaking skill improves. It enriches the vocabulary. If the word is repeated, and instead of repeating the word, if we replace it with its synonyms, we are able to give the child a huge treasure of vocabulary. It instills virtues. Herein, I would like to share a small experience in our school that we do. For value education class, we do not have a typical value education book. We have
Madam, sorry to interrupt you. Your voice is not audible. Could you please unmute your?
Is there any issue?
Voice is not audible, ma'am.
Just a minute, madam.
Ma'am,
Participants,
not
please
audible.
mute yourself.
Not audible, ma'am.
Participants, please don't interrupt.
Now, is it audible?
Yes, madam.
Yeah. Just a second. Now, is it audible?
Yes, madam. It's perfect.
I hope we are still connected, everyone.
Yes, madam.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So, yes, we were talking about instilling virtues. So, when we do our value education class in the school, we do not have a typical value education book. There are small instances happening in the school every day, in some or the other class. For example, in the lower classes, children get attracted towards the new compass box or the new pencil or the pen the friend has brought, and they feel like taking it without having any motto of stealing it. They just keep it. So such instances can be, spinned into a beautiful story without naming anyone. And if it is narrated, we have seen that those children who have wronged come back and apologize and accept their mistakes. So, yes, stories do instill virtues. Panchatantra, Aesop's fables, and all are such beautiful, stories which have instilled virtues in us right from our childhood. It fosters imagination. Herein, I would like to tell you all, as teachers, as parents, please ensure that your child reads a book before going and seeing it into a movie. Where I experimented this with my children. Before making them see the movie Harry Potter, I ensured that they read the book. So after they read the book, they completed the book, and then only I showed the movie to them. And the reaction was, oh, this wasn't the Hogwarts which I was imagining. Mine was much more beautiful. Mine was a beautiful castle. So mine was this color. The imagination is fostered. The moment you see the movie, what happens is the same Harry Potter will come into your mind. You will not be able to imagine a different Harry Potter altogether. Right? So stories foster imagination. It connects to you. It increases cultural understanding because we are not going to bind ourselves to a particular language, to a particular state. We move beyond the states. We move beyond the boundaries. We are free to have our fantasy across the globe, rather across the universe. It sharpens our memory. Why does it sharpen our memory? Like I said, शोले की story तो कोई नहीं भूला होगा भाई, because it was in the form of a story. So you put facts in the form of stories, and people would surely recollect it for years to come. It improves social skills because when the child is sitting in a storytelling class, he is like cool, enjoying himself without any inhibition, and he's able to interact. समझा वो क्या बोला, मेरी तो परी ऐसी थी, मेरा तो दोस्त ऐसा था. So they start interacting with each other. They are able to put this across in their real life connects. It opens the window of the world, because if the teacher is resourceful and is able to connect the universe to the child through the story, the window of the world is open to him or her. It stimulates intense experience. I still remember when Dr. Shireen Buhariwala, my literature teacher in my master's degree, was teaching King Lear. Every year she used to cry teaching King Lear. And mind me, my friends, every student cried with her. That was the way she taught King Lear. We can never forget King Lear. We can never forget Julius Caesar because the way she taught was so engrossed in our mind. It's deeply embedded in our heart and soul. And we connected emotionally to it. Stories provide entertainment? No doubt. It does provide entertainment. It encourages a spirit of inquiry, of discovery. It boosts the morale. It leads to a cooperative social environment. It integrates the subjects and the skill. We'll be discussing about it. It boosts the reading skill, yes. People will say, story sunne ke baad, who is going to read that particular book? But mind you, friends, when we talk to the children and we tell them that let us read a book about this story, and all the hands go up. Yes, ma'am, let's do that. So it does boost the reading skills. It advances the writing skill because when we are asking them to write the character sketch, the précis to it, or the title to it, or the summary, or the central idea about it, it does improve our writing skill. And it develops confidence for sure because the child is in a free zone. I call it swachanda, swachananda. They are in pure mood to enjoy themselves. And when learning becomes fun, when learning becomes enjoyment, it is there to stay back throughout your lifetime. Now, this was all about the students. What about we as educators? What do we gain out of storytelling? Storytelling makes us powerful communicators. When it makes us powerful communicator, we have a better interaction with the children. We are able to bond well with the students. We are able to bond. Our gelling is so beautiful with the children because here their minds are free. They are not above average, below average, mediocre children. They are all one audience, enjoying the story. Children. It presents facts in the form of fantasy, like we have seen the King fantasy draping the facts beautifully. It improves classroom management. Why? Because all of them are so glued to what you're saying and all ears to you that there is no discipline issue only. And that whatever you say, the children are able to do it. And mind you, friends, even in class 10th, it is so effective. The class performance progresses because the children are better listeners and are able to absorb what is being told and are able to write it in their own language. The basic concepts are learned so very nicely that they are able to present it better. Friends, I've observed often the students commit mistake in mathematics or in science or in social studies because they have not understood the problem. When it comes to word problem, when it comes to a twisted question, they have not understood the language of the question. Not that they do not know the answer. It's just that they have not understood the question. Basic concepts, we have observed that in mathematics, in science, in social studies, children commit small blunders because they have not understood the question. But through storytelling, we can improve the language of the children. The moment the language, the words, the vocabulary is developed, the child is able to understand the question well and hence is able to answer it also. So when the child is classroom performance is progressing, automatically you build a beautiful rapport with the parents, and it gives you a beautiful personal connect with the parents. It storytelling is a whole body communication. So I communicate with my face, I communicate with my gestures, I communicate with my tonal quality. I have voice modulation and intonation coming in. So it's a whole body communication. Behavioral issue is also identified and sorted out in storytelling. I have observed that at times when we are narrating a story, you must be finding a child or two, who are not able to emote to what has been asked for, or are suddenly crying out or bursting in laughter. When we take this child separately and talk to them, we find what is the problem and are able to give the diagnostic and remedial teaching to it. Other than this, like I said, children dread mathematics and science, but then when they are able to answer the questions, their problems related to hating that particular subject is sorted out. Are we all together, friends?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
I think there is a
Yes,
problem.
Yes, ma'am.
I think there's a problem with my screening. Are you able to see this?
Yes, madam, your presentation is visible.
Yeah. Story time again. Are we interested in listening to another story?
Yes,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
And I hope I'm able to narrate well to you.
We are
Yeah.
listening the story.
Educators. So I am dreaded. It's a testing time for me. But then, yes, if you are ready, all set to listen to a story, can you
We are
answer the
follow.
question to me?
We are
Why,
following.
why the sun and the moon live in the sky? This is an African folk tale. In Africa, there's a folk tale wherein it is presumed that the sun and the moon live together here on this earth. The sun and the moon were husband and wife, and they had a beautiful home from where there was a balcony and they could see the jungle around, they could see the waters around. And sun and the moon had one best friend, and the name was water. This sun went to meet his friend water every day. And you know what he said? Ole yo. And back answered the water. Ole yo. Ola ila ila ola la. And the water stated, Ola ila then ola la. Ola. So this was the way they greeted, and they talked to each other for long hours together. And then the sun went back home. This continued for days together. One day, Moon, the wife of Sun, told her husband, Sun, you have been going to your friend Moon or Water every time. Why don't you invite him to our house? The Sun said, Beautiful. What a wonderful idea. I'll go and invite him tomorrow. The very next day, the Sun was excited and he went to Waters and he said, Friend, I've been coming to your home every day. Now you are supposed to come to my home. And the Water says, Yes, I'm ready to come to your home. But then my family is so huge. You need to have a big house for it. The Sun thinks and he says, Okay, give me some days. I'm going to build a big house for you and I'll invite you. The Sun goes back home and tells this to Moon. And the Moon says, Why not? Let's make a big, big home for our friend Water. So they collected bricks and bamboos and hay, and they thatched the mud and made a beautiful home. And the Moon was a beautiful artist. So what she did is she made some paints out of turmeric and various other plants, and she made beautiful paintings across the wall, shapes and patterns and colors. And lo, their house was ready. It was so beautiful. They were proud of the house that they had made. And now they were ready to invite their friends called Water. So the Sun goes to his friend Water and says, What does he say? Ole yo. Ole-yo, olai, oh la la. And the water is saying, friend, have you built your home? And the sun says, yes, for you, my home is ready. Please do come over with your family. So the water says, okay, what I'll do is first I'll send the little members, the chotu members of the family to your home. The sun says, okay, let them come. And the moment the small fish, the snails, the turtles, the tortoise come around in the house of sun. And lo, there's so lot of water. Where do we go? They think. The sun and the moon climb up on a stool because there's water around. And the water now asks, do I send the other members? And the sun says, of course, please do send. And now, when the second lot comes in, the shark, the whales, the dolphins, the flora and fauna, the aquatic flora and fauna, the corals, the reefs, everyone. And the water level increases. Oh, where do we go? The sun and the moon now climb up the roof. And now the water asks, do I come now, friend? Do we have place? And the sun has been such a large-hearted person. He says, yes, please do come over, friend. Who comes in? The water gushing. Just give me a minute. So the water comes in gushing, and I had to gulp in some water. And when the water came in gushing from the roof, they were all above in the sky. And from that time, the sun and the moon are up there on the sky. But the sun has been a very good friend of the water. He ensures that he meets his friend water every day. And what do they say? Ole-yo, ole-yo, olai, olala, ola. Friends, we have heard a story. Can you tell me in the chat box which all subjects, which all classes can we integrate in this story? What all subjects can we integrate? Wonderful. Social science, all subjects, all classes. EVS. Good. Yes, science, EVS. What else? What else? Oh, we are sticking our maths. Okay. We are sticking ourselves to lower classes. Come on, higher. Geography, value education. Great. Great, great, great. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. All the subjects can be covered under this. All did we learn from this? We learned art. Nobody mentioned that, huh? Art had to be mentioned here because the moon was an artist. So art, the color, the concept of the gallery, the galaxy, the universe, the light, shadow, reflection, types of the houses, kinds of animals, tide, horizon, geometrical patterns, shapes. Have you come across the terminology called Pocoy stories? So in Pocoy stories are the stories about how and why. And if we ask the questions to the students about how and why, their inquisitiveness increases, their spirit of inquiry increases, their spirit of discovery increases. So this is one type of the Pocoy stories. Friends, we get very excited, abhi jaane ke baad everybody will say, kal ka lesson to I'm going to do on story base. But then let us first map our curriculum, our syllabus to the story where it is possible. It is not possible in practically all the stories, lessons, but you can pick and choose certain stories which are connected with your syllabus. First, take the low risk one, where you are sure that there can be a good story and you have lots and lots of resources. Research, research, research. And once these research is done, create a story bank. That's a beautiful concept. And story bank is not necessarily being done only by the language teacher. Story bank can have contributors from history, from social studies in general, mathematics, science. Yes. So when I'm talking about a story bank, it's an Excel sheet sort of a thing, wherein you have the grade, which class it is, the name of the chapter, and the name of the story, and the resource, or where do we get that story from, the internet or this book or that book, the name of the book. And this can have contributors from all other subjects. And we have a huge treasure of the story bank, and as and when we require, we are able to use it. You never know, one story can be used for various classes. It is just has to be tailor made as per the level of the student. And friends, be consistent. It's not that just once you have started with the storytelling and that's it. It has to be sparingly used throughout the year, not just once. Integrate the ideas and let subjects radiate from the centerpiece. And that centerpiece is the story. Stories are all around. If we try to reach beyond the textbook, we can find varied means to spin a tale around the concept. By the way, spin a tale is a beautiful game that we can play with the children as a language lab activity, and they learn idioms and phrases and vocabulary, grammar. That grammar which we are so dreaded in teaching or dreaded in learning is so easily taught with uh, spin a tale, with story. It's very easily taught. As a child at home, when you learn a language, say you're a Tamilan or a Malayali or a Marathi, you have not learned that language from your parents. As daddy is not going to tell you that this particular sentence is this grammar part, or that particular sentence is that part of the grammar. This is voice and this is preposition. We learn it correctly, correct grammar, because we hear it, because we speak it. It is the LSRW effect, which all of you know. And this LSRW effect, the listening, speaking, writing, and then reading and writing skill comes in from stories. NCRT lesson plan gives us such tips in most of the chapters to integrate the lesson with other subjects and weave a story to connect. I'll give you an example of chapter 3, mathematics, class 9, because everybody feels that storytelling is meant only for kindergarten, say till grade 3 or 4, we can manage. But no, storytelling can be interesting for adults also. So if it can be interesting for adults, why not for the adolescents? It, of course, would be interesting for the adolescents too. So chapter 3, coordinate geometry. Any maths teacher, this is how it looks. The page looks this way. So the maths teacher will say, "Isme kya naya hai?" This is coordinate geometry. But we have missed out something here. You know what's written there before the introduction is done? It states, what's the good of MacArthur's North Pole and equators, tropics, zones, and meridian lines? So the bellman would cry, and the crew would reply, they are all merely conventional signs. This is an extract taken from Lewis Carroll's famous book, The Hunting of the Snark. It's on the water expedition and voyage. But then there is a mention of MacArthur. There's a mention of the North Pole, the equators, tropics, zones, meridian lines, and so on and so forth. How is that connected to geometry? I'm sure it must have clicked into the maths teacher and to the social studies teachers, because yes, the maps are based on coordinate geometry. This is Lewis Carroll. He's famous for his Alice in Wonderland and also for the hunting of the snark. And the map you can see below is the map which he used in this particular book called The Hunting of the Snark. Is this map going to help you? No ways. This is the map that you need. And there is a mention of Geredus Macetis. We all know that Gerardus Mercator was a Flemish cartographer. He was a philosopher and a geographer who is best known for his creation of the Mercator's map projection. That clicked in, didn't it? Yes, friends, for social studies and mathematics, yes, it did click in. On the Mercator's projectional parallels of latitudes and meridians of longitude are drawn as straight lines so that they are useful for navigation. Mercator was also known for his development of the term atlas for a collection of maps and his skills in the calligraphy, engraving, publishing, and making of scientific instruments. In addition, Mercator had an interest in mathematics, astronomy, cosmography, terrestrial magnetism, history, and theology. Class 9, dear friends, we were supposed to do just a mathematics class. But if you read those two lines, couldn't we connect various subjects? What are the subjects we can connect quickly? Come on, let me see it in the chat box. Which are the subjects that we can connect to this? Yes, geography. We can connect geography. We can connect history. We can connect literature, right? We can connect oceanography. Great, 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 great. So we have so many subjects which we can connect and make the class interesting. If it has been taught this way with children, anytime forget this chapter called coordinate geometry, it is going to be there in their mind and in heart for our years to come. Now coming back to what kind of stories that we should tell. Stories of mathematicians, stories of philosophers, stories of scientists, stories of activists. Friends, our students nowadays do not have ideals. We need to give them ideals. We are talking about the shabby picture of the society, but are we giving them a replaced ideal or ideology? No, because we are not sharing stories with them. It was mentioned in the introduction that I had been lucky enough to meet Dr. Kalam, and that too thrice. I'd been to his house to invite him. We had done National Teachers Parliament. That was the first ever National Teachers Parliament, and Dr. Kalam had come to inaugurate it. So when we were interacting, he said, "Do you?" You asked me my subject, and I said, "I teach English." And he said, "Do you teach stories to your children?" I said, "Of course I do." And he said, "Ensure that you tell them about your success and your failure stories too. Children should learn to cope up with failures." Such a deep sentence, such a deep, remarkable word. So stories of discoveries, stories of inventions. So when we are discussing about stories of discoveries and inventions, we need to tell them whether these inventions were successful or failures. And even if it was failure, it teaches you something different. Remember, in the invention of bulb, there were 99 times that he failed. Oral history to bridge the gap between the past and the present. बूंदेले हर बोलों के मुख हमने सुनी कहानी थी खूब लड़ी मर्दानी वो तो झांसी वाली रानी थी. To know our Jhansi ki Rani, the first people who came across with a folk tale. We heard it as folk tales. So oral history is important to bridge the gap between the past and the present, to ensure that we are not repeating the mistakes of the past. We need to learn from our past. We need to connect from our past, and hence history. We need to not only connect to our past, but connect it to the current affairs, to bring it to the contextual relevance. And hence, we are supposed to speak on current affairs too. Films, poetries, art, all these are different forms of storytelling. Animation, comic strips, all these are different forms of storytelling. These are the intersections of art and science. It lies here. Are we together, friends? A thumbs up.
Yes, ma'am.
Stories are, thank you. Stories are everywhere. Think in the form of stories. So, when as child we used to play, when children we used to play, उसमें क्या दिखता है? When we used to sleep in the terrace in the summers, and when the clouds moved, we used to find shapes in it. We used to find stories in it. But as we grow up, we lose all those things. Find stories in every place. Read, read, read. That is the best way that you can get uh, ample of resources. Be observant. Hats off to these cartoonists and the comedians, what observatory skills they have. God grace. So be observant and be interested in the subject other than what you teach. Why not a social studies teacher comes and asks the maths teacher, what are you teaching in coordinate geometry? Let me also see. Or a maths teacher going to the social study teacher, what are you teaching here? Let me also see. So the history, so geography, maths, science, Hindi, Marathi, Sanskrit, all the teachers coming, sitting together and trying to know about various stories. Wouldn't that be interesting? And of course, your story bank is going to improve and it's going to, become Aladdin ka treasure. Practice, 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 practice. Because when you're practicing, you are mastering the art. And if you master your art, I'm sure your audience are going to be glued to you. And like we started, our classroom management issues will be sorted out. What are the 4 P's of storytelling? This 4 P's of storytelling is for story writing also. People, yes, it has to be about people. About places, yes, because through places and people, we are able to know the contemporary world and connect to it. Plot, without which there is no base to it. I call plot as verbum. Like verb is the most important word in a sentence. Plot is again most important thing in a story. Anjum, we'll listen to your story later. Can we do that? And the purpose. So what are the techniques that we use to make a beautiful story? Immerse your audience in a story. Tell a personal story. This is something which I've learned from Dr. Kalam. Create suspense. Do not reveal out everything. Create a suspense. Bring the characters to life. Let them get connected to those characters. Let them live that characters. Step into the shoe of the character. Give them life. Show them. Don't tell. Let them speak. This is the way their speaking skill will improve. Show and tell. Show and later tell. First show. Get it from them first. And then if they are not able to, give them inputs and then they'll be able to speak. Build up a star moment, that say this is going to be the effect. And always end with a positive takeaway. To conclude with, stories are containers used to transfer the knowledge and information. They are like bowls of water. And if the water is knowledge, stories are the channels that help the transfer this knowledge to the listener very smoothly and effectively. In education, stories are powerful medium to enable children to understand, to comprehend, and to retain information and facts, says Mr. Sridharan, who traveled across India narrating stories. Thank you, dear friends. Over to you, Indira ma'am.
Thank you, Jayashri ma'am. That was a beautiful session.
Thank you so very much.
And what you said and what Dr. Kalam said is also right. I came across a very interesting paper a few days back, wherein they were trying to investigate why many of the founders or co-founders, once their venture fails, many of them they try to give up their life, etc. So the conclusion in that was programmed for success, not programmed to handle failures. I often feel that we must share our failure stories or stories wherein we learned something from someone rather than, glorifying ourselves and things like that.
I agree.
And what you said was absolutely perfect, ma'am. I mean, stories are what they help us, connect to the essence of life. Thank you so much, ma'am, for the beautiful session.
Thank you so very much. Thank you, all the audience, for a patience listening.